Welcome to today's explainer. First off, if you're a new dog owner, huge congratulations. Bringing a new pup into your life is, well, it's incredibly rewarding. But let's be real for a second. It can also test your patience in ways you probably never even imagined, especially when you walk into the living room and realize your absolute favorite pair of shoes or maybe that expensive rug has just been completely shredded to pieces. So today, we're going to navigate through a new dog's destructive chewing phases. We've got some really fantastic insights lined up that will completely reframe how we look at this super frustrating behavior. Let's jump right in.
This is it. This is the universal, incredibly frustrating question that almost every single new dog owner asks themselves at some point. You buy them all the expensive toys, you get them the plushest bed, and yet they go right for the TV remote. It feels kind of personal, doesn't it? It feels like they're doing it literally just to drive you crazy. And I want to validate that struggle right now. It is incredibly tough to manage. But to actually solve it, we have to completely change the way we're asking the question. Okay, let's dive into this. The very first foundational mindset shift we need to make today comes down to this quote: chewing everything isn't one behavior with one cause. See, when you walk into a room and spot a chewed-up table leg, you're looking at a symptom, not the underlying disease. As long as you treat chewing as just one big, uniform bad habit, you're going to be endlessly frustrated, because the actual root causes, they are entirely different from one another.
To help you become a true behavioral detective for your dog, here is our roadmap for this explainer. First, we'll look at the one big mistake. Second, age versus boredom. Third, accidental owner sabotage. Fourth, hidden triggers and myths. And finally, the ultimate diagnostic question.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the one big mistake.
The biggest mistake we make is lumping multiple entirely different problems together into one giant bad dog behavior. When we generalize like this, we totally miss the nuances. By throwing all destruction under the umbrella of, oh, he's just a chewer, we're literally blinding ourselves to the specific physical, emotional, or environmental drivers behind the action. So throughout the rest of this explainer, our goal is to separate these issues so you can pinpoint exactly what's actually going on with your new dog.
Moving right along to Section 2, age versus boredom. And this brilliantly illustrates the stark contrast based on your dog's stage of life. If you have a young dog or a puppy, keep in mind this is usually just a mix of teething and innocent exploration. It's not bad behavior. It is quite literally their default biological wiring. Puppies experience the whole world through their mouths. But if you have an older, adult dog, the prime suspect completely shifts to boredom. An older dog who just isn't getting enough structured physical exercise and mental work, well, they're going to take matters into their own paws.
Which brings us to this highly relatable, slightly funny, but honestly mostly painful truth. When an older dog is bored, your furniture becomes the cheapest option. They need a job to do. If you don't give them a puzzle to solve or a physical outlet, dismantling your expensive sofa basically becomes their self-appointed full-time job.
Okay, let's pivot to Section 3. This is a huge one: accidental owner sabotage. This is where things get really interesting, because we're going to map out a disastrous feedback loop that you might be accidentally creating. Step 1, your dog innocently chews a random object. Step 2, you react. Maybe you yell, maybe you chase them around the living room to get the shoe back, or maybe you just lock eyes with them. Step 3, the dog learns that picking up a shoe is basically a magic button that instantly summons you and starts a thrilling game of keep away. By leaving them unsupervised with random objects, and then reacting when they grab them, you take a fleeting curiosity and forge it into a rock-solid, super entertaining habit. So the crucial point is, dogs don't need approval, they just need outcomes. We humans often think, well, I'm yelling, so the dog obviously knows I'm mad and will stop. But to a dog, especially a bored one, negative attention is still attention. A chase sequence is an amazing outcome. They are absolute pragmatists. If chewing the baseboard gets you off the couch to interact with them, then in their mind, the chewing was a massive success.
Let's move on to Section 4, hidden triggers and myths.
Here's a quick checklist of some less obvious suspects you really need to watch out for. First is anxiety, specifically separation-related chewing that only happens when you're out of the house. Second, a lack of appropriate chew outlets. If you haven't given them a clear, highly rewarding alternative, they'll just find one themselves. Third, sudden dental discomfort. If your older dog suddenly starts chewing out of nowhere, that's a massive red flag for tooth pain. And finally, ignore those online diet myths. Nutritional deficiencies are rarely the real cause here. You really need to look at environmental and behavioral patterns instead.
And speaking of myths, here is the most dangerous one of all. The idea that he knows it's wrong and is doing it anyway. We really have to stop assigning human morality to our dogs. It's such a dangerous trap. We see that classic guilty look when we walk in and find a mess, and we just assume they understand right from wrong. But they don't. If you fall into that trap and assume they know better, your natural instinct is going to be punishment. But here's the thing. Punishment doesn't fix the root cause. It literally just shifts the chewing to hidden locations. If you scold a dog for chewing a shoe right in front of you, they don't learn chewing shoes is bad. What they actually learn is chewing shoes while the human is watching is incredibly dangerous. So they just drag the shoe under the bed or behind the couch. You haven't solved the problem at all. You've just moved it out of sight.
All right, let's bring it all together in our final section, the ultimate diagnostic question.
Are you ready? The ultimate question is, when exactly is the chewing happening? This right here is the smoking gun. It's the absolute key piece of evidence that owners almost always overlook. We get so caught up in what they chewed and how much it's going to cost to replace that we completely ignore the context of the crime scene itself.
Let's move to and see how this builds into a perfect diagnostic tool by looking at some specific timing clues. Does the chewing only happen when they're left alone? Well, that points heavily towards separation anxiety. Does it happen right after a walk or a really high-energy event? That might actually be an inability to settle down and regulate their arousal. Or does it happen right after you've been totally ignoring them while typing away on your laptop? Bam. That is classic boredom and habit reinforcement. They're just trying to trigger that outcome of getting your attention.
If you take away absolutely nothing else from today's explainer, let it be this. Answer the timing question, and the diagnosis stops being guesswork. By observing the when, you naturally unlock the why. And once you know the why, whether it's teething, boredom, anxiety, or accidental training, you can finally implement the right solution, instead of just endlessly replacing your stuff.
You now have the structured framework of a true canine behavioral detective. You know the mistakes to avoid, you know the hidden triggers, and you know the ultimate question to ask. So, I want to leave you with this provocative thought. What is your dog trying to tell you the next time they pick up a shoe? Are they bored? Are they anxious? Or are they just waiting for you to start the game? Thank you so much for joining us for this explainer, and best of luck putting these insights into practice with your new best friend.